You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo, episode number 367.
Welcome to the Life Coach School podcast, where it's all about real clients, real problems, and real coaching. And now, your host, Master Coach Instructor, Brooke Castillo.
Hello, my friends. Today's a very big day. We have a lot of people on the podcast today because we want to talk about entrepreneur couples. This is a trend happening in our industry. It's so exciting. One person becomes a life coach, typically the woman, y'all, and starts making a bunch of money. And then her partner joins her husband, or it's happened the other way too, of course, joins her and they run the business together. And so we wanted to talk about what it's like to run a business with your spouse, with your partner, with the person that you live with and work with and raise children with. Some of us raising children with. So I invited some couples on the podcast to talk about this. And the way that I want to do it is I'll introduce them. They're going to tell a little bit about their story. And then we're going to go back around and talk about some of the challenges of working together and living together and how these folks have solved some of those challenges and maybe how they haven't solved some of those challenges and how they work together. Anyway, so let's start with Jody and Jake Moore.
Right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jody.
I'm Jake.
You want us to just give our quick summary of our story in a nutshell, Brooke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the long version, whatever you think.
We won't do that. We could take up the whole time. So I've been a life coach now, a certified life coach for over 7 years. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And started because I fell in love with the work and was using it to help myself and better my life. And Jake was always very supportive of me as I fell more in love with it, decided to go through coach training and actually didn't really have big aspirations of building a business. I just knew that I was called to take that step and to learn more, to further my own development. So as I started building the business, Jake was working in healthcare at the time as an administrator, and it was good for him for a while, but after a while, not so good, right? You want to speak to that, Jake?
Yeah, I had been working in it for probably about 7 or 8 years, at which time I was kind of ready for something different. And it kind of started out as a joke where I'd come home from work and tell Jody if she needed an assistant to grab her Diet Cokes, I'm the man. I'll do it. Whatever you need. And after probably 6 or 8 months of joking about it, one time I said, okay, when do you want to start? And at that point, I think it was probably about 35 days from that point that I had started after giving my notice with my other company. And yeah, we started from there, and it's just kind of grown as far as what we do as our roles and how we work together.
And I will say that in the beginning, I wasn't making enough money in the business to support our family. We have 4 children. At the time, we had 3, I think. Trying to remember. Anyway, we needed Jake's salary. He was really supporting us as I built my business. So, he sometimes tries to give me the credit for building this amazing business, but I remind him, we built this because you were bringing home the salary that was paying our mortgage, and you were supportive of me. And I really view it as something we did together in making our lives work the way we did. And then when it got to the point that we could replace his salary with the business, of course, at the same time the business was growing, I needed more help. We did a lot of thinking and praying and getting coached about it before we made that decision. But we're so grateful today. We've been working together now for about 4 years. Is that right, hon?
Yeah, this is
wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
crazy.
It's so much fun that we just have the freedom, the flexibility to work when we want, to make decisions about our lives and our business and our family. And we'll talk later about the challenges, but we're so grateful that we've been able to do this. So.
Okay, so I want to ask you some super personal questions. So hopefully you'll
Let's
answer.
do it.
If you don't mind sharing numbers, I think it would be helpful for other people maybe in that position, like, my husband wants to come home or my wife wants to come home. What was his salary? How much were you making? How did you figure out that it would work? How did you know that it would work? Or assume that it would work, I guess.
Well, maybe I'll talk about, like, from my standpoint, from the healthcare position that I was making, we had just moved, and it had been a pay cut where before it was a healthy salary. It was bringing home, between 250 and 300 a year between base and bonus. And that more than halved when we moved up to Washington to take this other opportunity of kind of needing a company change. And so from my standpoint, Jody knew what she was making in her business. I didn't.
I didn't tell him.
I just knew if things ever got tight, she'd always come up with money. She's like, oh, great. Okay. And as I kind of joke about, hey, well, I'll be your assistant. And kind of, I was running numbers in the back of my head, like, hey, well, your membership is at this. So when it gets to this point, you'll be matching what my base is. And then when it gets to this point, you'll be matching my base plus what my bonus was. And so I kind of had that running, but I didn't really have a real strong grasp, like this is the exact number.
But I will say we went from, and again, Jake was making what I think is a very healthy salary at $200,000 to $300,000 a year. Yeah. When we made the change, we were able to replace that with my business, but just barely. I was probably making $300,000 to $400,000 in revenue, and of course, there are expenses to running the business. So we made that cut, but then we just totally took off from there. Today we make several million, almost 3 million last year. So that's fun.
That's so fun. I love that. Okay, awesome. And then we'll talk about some of the challenges that you face. But I just want to say, I think that decisions like this are kind of scary, yeah? To give up a real job,
right?
As they say.
It was. And like I said, we didn't take it lightly, that decision. Yeah. There was lots of thought and prayer, and I got coached by you on it. And so it is a big decision. It's a big decision. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go to you, Erin and Steve. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about how it all worked out with y'all?
So I joined Scholars, I think the very second month that you offered it. I was a huge fan. I used to listen to you driving to and from teaching yoga when I was doing that. And I became a coach in 2018. And I don't know, I think Steve kind of thought like it was a nice little side business that I had and a cute thing I was doing as I was raising our very young children. But last year during Master Coach training, I think I told you, I want to make more money than my husband. I'm going to feel so good when I just show him that I can totally do it. And he has always been very supportive, but I think he just thought, and Steve, you can share your experience about this, that it was this kind of fun thing I was doing to replace yoga. And last year, I think our 12-month total right now, we're at about 230 for our business.
So, and how much was his salary that you were trying to replace?
Oh, well, Steve, you might want to talk about that.
Yeah, so my journey was not as planned out as what Jake and Jody were talking about to joining the business. So I had one of those amazing tech jobs. So salary was around 150, but the options were what were kind of changing our life, right?
The stock options. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Put us in a position to not have to worry about whatever was going on. So last year we cleared 800,000, including the stock. But that was the last year of all the stock vesting. So I'm sitting here in this place where I'm like, so my salary is okay, but now Erin's ahead of me on salary. So, I took some time off over the summer to spend with the kiddos because she was working, and I'm like, hey, let's not do the work from home with kids juggling things. So I took some time off. And when I decided to go back, it was because Erin said, I don't think we're in a place where we can just stop. Like, we still need your salary. You keep working. So I went back to work, and 2 months later was fired.
Oh, what?
Yeah, totally just got axed. There was I put together a podcast for it. So if people want the whole story, they can check out the podcast. But, I was in one of those very secure jobs. I'd been there for 4 years. It was a great run. And then, they just said, okay, your time is up. And I said, all right, well, I'm a full-time coach because I got certified 6 months ago. And
I love the universe. The universe is like, what are you doing going back to work, Steve?
That's totally what happened. It was like, slap, go coach. I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn this into something great for people. I'm going to just go all in. So now Erin and I are full-time partners in that business.
That's so amazing. I can't remember, Erin, how you were communicating with me. Maybe it was on Slack or something, but just being in a position where you can get fired from your job and she's like, we got this. and there's the coaching industry that you wanted to go in. And so you all have a little bit different of a situation. You're both coaching.
We're both coaching.
You're both coaching. Like, I think for Jody and Jake, Jody's coaching. Jake, are you doing any coaching?
No.
You're just coaching yourself?
Exactly.
Yes.
I just listen to your podcast and Jody's and work on myself that way.
Perfect. Okay. So how long, Steve, have you been in the business now?
So as a coach, I've been in the business for about 6 months.
Okay.
And,
Awesome.
Getting my first set of clients, getting my niche, working on all the things to kind of get the momentum going. But I've been interested in the self-improvement space. Erin and I met in a spiritual community. So like the foundation of life is here for evolution. It's for growth. It's to create as much love as possible. That's been part of my life for a long time, which is what kind of aligned me with coaching as a great way to take that interest, bring it into the world, make a lot of money, change a lot of people's lives. And so that's what got me going. Plus the fact that Erin was doing so well with it. I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Let's do this. So tell us a little bit, Erin, about the coaching that y'all do in your business.
So we are relationship coaches for entrepreneurs because
Perfect.
Yep.
We need them.
We do need them. I'm sure we're going to hear from everybody today just how it's challenging when you're learning how to do so many things for the very first time and trying to keep that energy up and be the face of your business and not just leave your partner with the emotional leftovers at the end of the day.
Right.
So it's been amazing. And just having our relationship kind of be the laboratory for everything that we teach.
I love that. That's the best kind of coaching, when you go through it yourself and then you help other people go through it. Awesome. Okay. What about you, Jake and Whitney? Maybe you guys should remind everyone who y'all are, because you've been on the podcast before back in the day.
Yeah.
50.
I believe I was the first person ever on Brooke's podcast.
Right? Were you really the very first guest ever?
I was the first I ever heard on your.
That's amazing. Well, welcome back, Jake.
Thanks. It's good to be here, and finally my voice is on here instead of just listening to Whit be on here. So
So it was episode 50, right?
150. Yeah.
150. Yeah, the proposal episode. So if you want to hear about that whole story, how they met and how he proposed, so good. You should listen to that. But now you're all working together. So tell us how that all happened.
Yeah.
Well, our story is different. That's for sure.
Very different.
We just jumped in together.
So I have been in Scholars since day one. When Brooke launched it, I was like, we were really poor, looking to get married with like the lowest budget as possible. And I was like, can we please afford this? And he's like, absolutely. Because while we were dating before podcast 150, we would listen to your podcast all the time, driving to see each other. And so self-coaching Scholars was definitely a prayer answered. Are we double, triple diamond now?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But
triple diamonds.
Triple diamond. And the whole time in self-coaching Scholars, just doing so much transformative work from your coaching, you were telling Jake and I to stop doing our business idea, which was called Fit Bar. You're like, what is Fit Bar? It sounds like it's not going to work.
You said it sounds like it's for lonely people. We're like, dang, I think she's right.
I'm so rude. Gosh.
Yeah, you've made me cry a few times. And you're like, you guys just need to start coaching together. And we would laugh at that. And I think it finally took us a year and a half.
Yeah.
And decided to coach together. So we've been coaching side by side.
Just like this, just like you see us right now.
Every client for the last 2 years.
Yep.
So, and I remember this because Jake, you were a school teacher, right?
Sure was.
I remember, right? Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. It was very scary. We had a lot of tears. Should he quit? Are we going to be able to make enough money? You guys went all in on it. Huge risk. And it worked out, yeah?
Sure did.
Yeah.
I mean, Whitney will still tell you.
I thought this was the easiest choice I think I've ever made in my life. Like, yeah. I get to hang out with her 24/7 now. And I'll tell you a secret that's very cool about being a teacher. replacing a teacher's salary is not stressful.
Unlike Jake Moore.
Hey, babe, I think we can make 30 grand. Let's do it.
So awesome. In a week, we got this. That's amazing. I love it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we did actually recently. That's always like my little measure because I remember how much I made. And
yeah.
in 2 months that we've made my annual salary.
Wow. That is one of the things that like is so mind-blowing about our industry, especially when you meet people that don't understand our industry. And, you know, it sounds like when someone says, you know, I'm making $250,000 a year, that is a high level salary, right? But for us, the potential is so huge. Our ability to make money is so huge that even obviously $30,000, that's a monthly, that's what you're making per month now, what you used to make in a year. That is so extraordinary. I'm so happy for y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. What about you, Corinne and Chris?
Well,
You guys are doing all right.
yeah. I started my business in 2007 and before I met you and was making none of the money. Chris made all the money. He was the one who was bringing in the income, but I really wanted to help people lose weight. I was just so wanting to do it. I would do it for free, all the things. And in 2015, I met you and came through the life coach school and really started like talking to Chris about how I wanted to take this, I called it the best weight loss charity on the internet, how I wanted to actually take that and make it into a business. So he was working a full-time job. He was an executive 25 years in at a company. And about a year, we've been together, working together now for it'll be 2 years this May.
Yes.
Yeah, this May. And the May previous to that, the business was starting to really take off and grow. And I always knew how talented Chris was at his old job. He just had skills way outside of technology. And I wanted him to work with me. And I knew that if he came and worked with me, that the sky would be the limit for us. And so I looked at him at the pool. We were in Vegas. And I just said, what do I need to make in this business in this next year so that you can walk away from Captain D's? And that's where he used to work. And so he told me, and I set the goal.
How much was that? Will you share with us?
How much did I think the business needed to be doing about $2 million. Because like by the time you pay expenses and we were going to replace his income, plus I wanted an income. I didn't want to just, replace it. I think we made about $2 million that next year. I had to go from $400,000 to about $2 million. And I just doubled down, put my nose to the grind and was like, all right, I'm doing this. And we did. And that following May, we literally were sitting at the same Vegas pool, same lounge chair, and we were toasting because he had literally put in his resignation and had left. And it took us that 1 year. So
the funny thing about that is I'd forgotten about this 1 year declaration that we made. And
we had probably had a few drinks.
Yeah.
Just being real honest.
Well, I'm sure that's true. I have my waterproof notebook for those situations, but I didn't record this. Anyway, so I had forgotten all about this. And coming home from that trip, I was like, you know what? I think it was last year when we said that I would be, full-time in the business. And she said, well, no shit. I write it down every day. It's a goal.
Like it was,
I just forgot.
It was like imprinted in my brain. I was shocked that he didn't know it, but it was just really important because I knew that we would do great things together. And we have. I mean, we are now, at 12 million and changing people's lives every single day.
I think that's part of it too for just prospective people in that same situation. We always thought of it as it's kind of like you don't want all your bets to be risky, but you don't want all your bets to be safe. Mm-hmm. So you need both. And so that's how I always thought of it. I wanted her to try everything and be the risk taker because that's where the reward would come. And then I would just hold it down steady with no risk. I mean, not no risk, but less risk. And until that bet paid off, we just kept making bets.
Yeah. I love it though. A lot of people think that what we do is so risky, right? And it is, especially when you're first starting up. You don't know if it's going to be that successful. But then you think about someone like Steve, who's in a job that he thinks is stable and this is gone, right? And so when you really think about where is the biggest risk now, it's like having someone else be in charge of your life. I think for me, like I love, Corinne, that you're just like, all right, how much do I need to make? Okay. 400 to 2 million. All right, let's go. Right. But I'm curious with you, Chris. So you have this kind of important job. If you're willing to share how much you were making salary, like you were an executive,
I'd been there a long time. I'd worked my way up from an entry-level position to CIO and was there for 25 years.
Yeah.
And, I was making base salary between somewhere around 225-ish.
Yeah.
And then about that again in bonus potential in years we made bonus, which wasn't every year. And then I had a little bit of equity in the form of a profit sharing pool. Anyway,
right.
So once in a while, if another private equity firm bought the company, it would be a nice payday for those of us that were responsible for building up the margins and the profits, for that sale. But like you were saying, in the meantime, I'm at the mercy of probably, the one person I officially report to and the 9 people that could probably have me fired if they don't like it.
But I'm curious, like, what's it like for, you're this super smart guy, executive at a company, doing really smart shit that most people can't do, making more money than most people, right, in your age group. And your wife is, on their internet charging $7 to help people lose weight. At what point were you like, wait a minute, this little hobby that my wife has could be something that I want to do? Like, I'm just trying to imagine how that happens in your brain. Because I've been with Corinne this whole journey and her like, I want to retire. My husband crying all the time, like so excited. And then when she did it, crying some more. But I'm curious about what it was like for you. Because at some point you were probably like, huh.
Well, you asked what point. And that point for me was when it started. I mean, in all seriousness, like
See, now you're going to make me cry. See?
Well, and I really believe in this, and this is the way my whole career, I've managed people this way, and we do it now with the team. You just, see what they're really good at and believe in them hard enough, and they start to believe in themselves the same way. I didn't see any reason why it couldn't work because everybody she talked to was entranced with her message.
Mm-hmm.
And, she had developed a lot of the concepts that you were so brilliant at putting names to and sort of putting it all together in a conceptual model that was consistent. And I just think that the potential was there. And it would have been one form or another,
So you believed in her and knew she would be successful, but was there a point where you started to see like, wait, I do want, because she wanted you to be a part of it. Were you like, I'm in as soon as it's at that point?
Well, I mean, I feel like I was a part of it from the get-go.
Okay.
But not to the extent that I wanted to be.
I see.
Could afford to be. There were little things that would happen, mostly in the form of discussions about, how we're going to do this or that. And, I couldn't do the things, but I could give advice and at least. But sometimes I would do the things, like when she had her fitness camps and stuff. I remember distinctly going to pick up the food for everybody because that's what we did.
I will say this. One thing Chris told me a long time ago, this was, probably in the early stages. We were just talking about him at work and what I do, because everything that I do it's so clear that you're impacting people's lives and you hear it all the time. And he had shared with me that like a goal for him was to be able to change people's lives.
Oh God, are you going to cry again?
He was always trying to make that connection at his job. And, when you work in fast food, he worked his mind like a boss, I will tell you, but he really wanted to impact people's lives. And I think when we really started talking about him coming to work for us, we had this shared vision that we were going to change people's lives. And we knew that together we could do that. And so I think that was always important to him.
For sure. Yeah. That striving to become your potential, that brings a lot of happiness and seeing that gradual improvement. And, like, these are all areas of the business that I love. Like, my happy place is when we have something that kind of works, and then now we can just incrementally improve it. I love that. I just love that whole process.
Yeah. It's so cool too when you can be a part of something that has so much meaning to you personally and so much purpose. Yeah, I love that. So let's go now. I'm going to come back to you, Jody and Jake. Why don't you talk a little bit about your roles in the business, how you interact with each other, and then maybe some challenges?
Yeah. So this is something we're constantly trying to reassess I feel like every year is just like, what are we doing? Do we need to hire out some of the things that either of us is doing as the business grows and changes? But currently, I am the lead coach. So we have other coaches that coach as well, but I do a lot of coaching and teaching and sort of the delivery, if you will, of the service we provide. I also primarily responsible for the marketing piece. So that's where I spend almost all my time, is either creating or delivering content and coaching, or creating and helping to execute marketing. But then Jake steps in. Jake, you want to describe what you do?
Yeah, I'm more on the back end in the shadows, making sure all the technology is working. I kind of act as a sounding board for Jody and a lot of things. Like, she'll run stuff past me and kind of get my 2 cents.
And then do whatever I want anyways.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about the struggles the next part, right?
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So I kind of help with that. And then just as far as the compliance goes, with working with our accountants and attorneys, making sure that everything is set up properly, just as we're growing and as we're making those changes, that we're doing them right, doing them properly, just making sure that everything is covered and done the way that it's supposed to be.
We always joke because at our big live events, everybody's so excited to see me. And then Jake will be there helping, and they'll say, "Now, who are you?" And I've trained Jake to say, "I sleep with her." That's his answer. But really, like, what he does is so crucial, and it's all the stuff that I'm not good at and don't want to do. So I'm so glad to have him leading it up.
So you're all in a house together working with your 4 children. I mean, you have employees you're managing, but also then you have the kids. How do you manage your time with the kids?
Well, the kids are in school sometimes, not as much this year as we would have liked, but we also have childcare that we bring in to help watch the kids. And so if they're not in school and we're not going to be able to cover, there's times when mostly Jake, I should say, has to cover with the kids, but we have childcare. We don't just try to do all of it.
Okay. So do you have someone that comes in and watches the kids in the house while you're both in the house working?
Yes, that's right.
Tell me about that decision. I think that it's actually really important, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, because we're here, we don't need help. Like, the kids, I can still keep an eye on them. And I'm always warning people, please don't do that to yourself. So,
well, and even back before it was Jake and I both, Jake was gone at work all day and it was just me. Yeah. And, growing up and, I have pretty conservative values. I had a mom that stayed at home with me, which I really appreciated and thought I wanted to do that for my kids. But what I realized is it sounds so great to work from home so that you can just be there with your kids and work. But it's terrible, because now you're trying to do 2 jobs. You're trying to take care of the kids and do whatever your business is. And I just, for myself anyway, some people might prefer that, but I didn't. I was only half there for work and half there for my kids. And so I knew that wasn't serving me or the kids in the end. And so even before Jake started working with me, I hired someone to watch my kids while I'm working. I considered that to be a really wise investment for me personally.
Love it.
And part of that too is, as far as the childcare goes, is, we have our designated focused work days really are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. And we still have things that we need to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but just kind of based on the workload, Jody definitely has the heavier workload between the 2 of us. She's got priority on when she needs to work, and then I'll kind of tag team those days off if the kids are around or they need to be taken care of. And so, there is some structure that we've planned around that as well, as far as just kind of knowing, hey, when we don't have the childcare, how do we do this? But I definitely second what Jody is saying. Those days trying to work and watch the kids is, you don't get anything done. It takes twice as long.
Right. Okay, Jake. So tell us something super hard about working with your wife.
I think for me, what was the hardest was there's about a 6 to 9 month transition when I came into this job. And when I started it, I went into it knowing too that I didn't want to just take this job because it was something different than what I had. When I was in my previous job, even though I had taken a job in this area up in Washington, I also kind of knew that, like, I just don't want to be in that industry anymore. I was looking for something else, but I didn't want to jump into this just because it was something different.
Okay.
I didn't want to take what seems like the easy way out of, like, I'm just going to get out of what I was doing and get into something different, because I knew that I'd had enough experience that I ultimately would still end up feeling the same about whatever because of whatever my thought processes were. And I just didn't want to find myself in that same position working here with Jody.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest challenges was in my previous jobs, not that I have a need to be front and center, but is in the director position, even though I had department heads and other people leading a bunch of departments and other initiatives within the operations, I was still very much like, ultimately, what I directed was what happened. And when stuff went sideways, I was ultimately the one that in the group of people making that final decision. And so it was a big change going from, I was kind of making a lot of the decisions, or at least involved in a lot of decisions, to where it's like, oh, hey, this is Jody's. And not that I don't make decisions here, but this is her business.
Right.
So there definitely was a 6 to 9 month period where there was, for me, it was kind of challenging, like, oh, well, do I have a voice, or do I have to add to this? And so some of it was just kind of maybe some personal insecurities and just kind of working through that. But I think that was like the serious challenge. I joked, Jody had me on her podcast. And when she asked me that question, I said, getting in my car after she drives. That's the
worst part about being married to me.
But I think
pretty good. That means I'm pretty easy to be married to. If that's the worst thing.
But I think that was probably the biggest challenge. And, just kind of reconciling the whole thing of, no, it's not that what I have to say isn't valuable or that she doesn't listen to it, but this really is her business. She's the one that brings all of her corporate experience and all the training that she went through her job and through going through your training and what she's been doing in this to build this. And I'm going to defer to that. And I need to defer to that. And so that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced.
And did you feel like that was a shift from how you had been with her before, like in your family?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did you feel like, maybe you were more, it's your family together and you started it together? It's a little bit different than then all of a sudden coming into her business that she had been working in and then you were joining.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I think when it comes to our personal lives, Jake and I are both very laid back. I don't know that there's a clear, like, more dominant person, if you will, when it comes to decisions. We're both pretty laid back about where do you want to go on vacation or, things like that. When it comes to my business, I definitely have much stronger opinions.
Okay.
So I think that was an adjustment for both of us.
Got it. Yeah.
If I could also just throw out one kind of small tip for anybody that seems like a little thing, but really I think has made a huge difference for us, is when you live together and you work together, it's tempting for both of those worlds to bleed into each other. And I was definitely more guilty of this than Jake, where we'd be brushing our teeth and I'm like, oh, hey, did you remember to send that one email off to the, while he's brushing his teeth?
Right.
And so Chris Blackie actually pointed out to me that that's probably not a great idea. And that to have still scheduled meetings, and I'm still not great at this. I still have work to do, but like, let's have a time when we sit down and meet and talk about work things and we both take notes and we're in that mode. And then other times when we're just, with our family. I will say this too, that Jake and I both love to watch TV, and we were in the car with all of our kids recently talking about a TV show we were watching. And I was like, but I don't understand. They transferred the money out, but where did it go? Where's that money going to go? And my daughter, all of a sudden, 10 minutes into the conversation, took this huge sigh of relief. And she's like, I just realized you're talking about TV. I thought you were talking about work. And it sounded so like something had gone wrong and we'd lost all this money.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I still have work to do of not talking about work all the time. But that really does make a big difference.
I could just add, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was going to say the same thing. And what I really find interesting is that you use the example of like when you're brushing your teeth to not bring something up, because I think I specifically remember that instance when I was.
I do that.
But
that's awesome.
One of the top things on my list too is like, it's not that we don't talk about work stuff outside of kind of our designated hours, but any serious work stuff, we absolutely let's sit down and let's designate some time when the kids aren't knocking on the door and draw attention.
So good. Okay. Awesome. All right. What about you, Aaron and Steve? What have been some of your challenges and how maybe some tips on how you've overcome them?
My big challenge, I think, has been learning to let go. I've been an entrepreneur for so long that having this other very capable person who may also be a bit of an alpha step into my business, and just having to like consider things outside of the normally very like loving relationship space. It's been a challenge for me.
And so how have you dealt with that?
Well, my coaches are all gainfully employed, getting a lot of coaching.
Good. Yes.
So has Steve. And that's actually, I think that's a huge part of it. But also, I've just had to get comfortable with admitting when I'm wrong or admitting when I've like just done something that doesn't feel totally aligned with me.
Yeah.
So when I'm grouchy or maybe irritable, or I just say something that might be sharper than I had intended in a workspace, making sure that I always go back and own that.
That's actually super interesting. Because I used to work with my ex too. And this is so horrifying to say out loud. But the way that we talk to like our family members is sometimes so much worse than how we would talk to an employee. Right. And so when you're in that, or you let your emotions kind of get the best of you sometimes. And so I think that's actually a really good point. Like when you're working, being in like, you guys would consider yourselves, are you like, Jody's like Jake's boss, I think is how we kind of described it. How would you all describe it?
Yeah. So Aaron is the CEO.
Okay.
As of right now, I'm not even a shareholding member of the company. Like I still have no title. We got to get that all sorted out.
You're an employee. Yeah.
He gets paid.
He gets paid.
I pay him.
Right.
But,
so it's like you're the boss and then all of a sudden then you're the wife. Like that's a shift. So I love the fact that your awareness about it, I think is super important. And just being like, okay, we're at work right now, be in work mode. Now we're at home. Now I can yell at you.
And the flip side of totally. But the thing that's interesting
at work. Yeah.
Right. What's interesting about that is even when things happen in our personal life, when the emotions have kind of settled, we'll say, okay, now what can we do with this? Like, let's actually put all our tools to use.
Yes.
And then let's turn this into something that we can then share.
Yes. I love this.
With other people. Like once we've kind of had it for ourselves and done the relationship, then where can this make a difference in people's lives?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the big challenges in joining Erin's business, which is what happened, even though like I have my own practice, she has her own practice. We have a group program that we're doing like as our together thing.
Okay.
There's still who's responsible for what, how are we doing this, what's our voice, all the stuff of running a business. The big challenge for me has been as someone who's like, well, I'm the boss. Like, even if I have a boss, it's like, well, I'm the boss. And suddenly my wife is my boss. I'm like, oh, what a mind fuck at first. You're just like, what's actually happening here? And so part of the growth for me is like uncovering all this stuff of like, I should be earning more than my wife. I should be in charge if it's, me and an equal, like all of these things. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's just open that up. And taking Erin's feedback and asking for help and all of these things that wouldn't be natural. Otherwise, it's like, this is our chance to grow in this way.
Yeah. I love that. That kind of refers back to what Jake was saying too, like in the beginning, feeling, him having a little bit of maybe insecurity around that and making that adjustment. And I feel like my hat is off to couples who work together. I feel like the amount of vulnerability and pride you have to give up in order to make that work is huge. So awesome. Any other tips you want to add?
Just want to double down on the childcare thing.
Okay, good.
We have a nanny who comes in Monday through Wednesday and Friday. As the recording was starting, she brought our 3-year-old in with a bloody nose. I was on mute and I said, she's got you. Don't worry. You're good. And so he was being cleaned up and now we're back outside.
Awesome. Okay. All right. What about you, Jake and Whit? What have you guys been struggling with, if anything?
It's been nothing but easy.
Nothing but easy street. You forget that I coach her, Jake.
Yeah. No, I think ours is a little different because from the time that we were married, we also started a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were a blended family. We were newly married and now we have no income.
None.
And we're building a business.
Right.
That didn't end up working. We ended up creating
We
this.
made $18 that one day.
Yeah.
We
that
made
is true.
$18.
Oh, that's actually really important. Your first round, first business, $18.
Yeah.
Now you could have quit and gone back to your 30K, which probably seemed like a lot at that moment.
Yeah, it was so tempting. It really was.
Yeah.
But I think since we've been Steadfast Life Coaching, my transformation through your work, Brooke, has been our marketing. And then it's just been figuring out, we knew that we wanted to coach together. Jake has extraordinary teaching skills. And so the challenge was, how do we coach together on the calls?
When every coach that we talked to about it said, don't.
Yeah.
Just do your own thing. Be
individual coaches,
it can
but
be
not
Steadfast
together.
Life Coaching, and we're like, no, we can figure it out. We can figure it out.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the shift was I call myself the world's only assistant life coach.
Yes, that is amazing. All of a sudden, I feel like I need an assistant. Coaches with me. That is so awesome. I love it. So,
I have been both head coaches and assistant coaches for tons of sports programs.
There we go.
And I was like, you know what? Assistant coaches are awesome. And
totally.
It's not like a promotion or a demotion, really. It's roles. And I was like, you know what, Whit? I can do the role. I can step into that, because let me tell you, when Whit is getting in your brain, it can be intimidating. She's hardcore.
Right.
And so sometimes you need a little assistant coach to be like, hey, you're safe. You're safe.
Which I gonna be okay. When I was getting coached by you, so an assistant coach to be like, Whitney, she doesn't hate you. She's safe.
What she's trying to say is,
let me translate. Oh, that's amazing. So have you guys gotten into any like fights or
never
struggles?
You're
Nothing.
like, go right in, Brooke.
How do you deal with that? Like, because sometimes, allegedly, I've heard that sometimes people like to, give each other the silent treatment or be mad or, huff away, but you can't when you're working, right? So how do you guys deal with it or if you do get in fights or arguments?
Yeah, well, one of the things that's cool, I think about it, is that we noticed that early on. Like, hey, when we get in fights, it requires a lot of urgency, immediate attention. We don't get to say, hey, let's deal with it later because we have a client in 30 minutes.
Yes.
And so we've got to go. And we noticed that. And we're like, hey, do we want that or do we not want that in our life? And we got to say, like, you know what? No, we want it. Like, this marriage, the business does not work without this. It doesn't. The whole thing falls apart. And we're like, good.
Yes.
And that way it forces, we're never choosing, do we prioritize the business or do we prioritize the marriage today?
Oh, that's so good.
No way. They're one and the same.
Yeah. I love that. So one of the things I love about that for y'all is it just requires you to constantly be connecting and talking and being vulnerable and telling the truth, which will help, like you're saying, not just your business grow, but your relationship grow, right? Because one will stagnate the other.
Yeah.
Totally.
And Whit doesn't wait around when there's discomfort. It's addressed.
That's amazing. I love it. So good. Any other tips you want to add for the people thinking about doing this crazy thing together?
Go ahead.
Oh, I just know for myself, what I noticed was that I really value being a teammate. I like being a good teammate. And a good teammate husband is different than a good teammate business partner. And so I had to know which one I was being, especially like I think a good teammate business partner sometimes is not a yes man, right?
Yes.
Did you consider this? Did you consider that? We might get in trouble here. And then it's like 7 p.m. and she's got this idea. Hey, I'm going to try this thing. Hey, that sounds like a bad idea for these 3 reasons. And I'm like, whoa, that's not a very good husband.
I see.
And so I just needed to figure out, not only like are we talking about work, not talking about work, but like, am I right now?
So good. So good. I love this tip. All right. What about you, Chris, Corinne? What do you guys struggle with? And I'm afraid you're going to say nothing. So find something.
No, I got 2.
Okay, good.
What are you talking about? He may be like, oh no, I delight in my wife at all times, but my thing, I will tell you, the first year we worked together, my struggle was aggravating him constantly. a puppy.
Double down on that.
Yeah, like I was just like wagging my tail all the time, wondering when we were going to have a chat, when are we going to have a meeting, when are we just going to talk?
Let's meet about this. Let's meet about this.
Oh, yeah. A constant. And then it kind of mellowed out after, well, one, he pointed it out to me. He was like, I can't get shit done if you keep coming to the office all the time. And then year 2, we always set these goals for our team. And one of his goals was he wanted 4.2 hours a day, literally 0.2, where he could program and basically not be bothered. He just wanted it known. So I was like, challenge taken. So I'm determined, like I'm like carving it out on the calendar when I don't talk to him, all this other stuff. But what ended up happening was in year 2 is our team started growing fast because as we were getting bigger, I started seeing all the places where I was such a bottleneck to my own business. So we're hiring. And I've never really led people. I've led people to weight loss glory, but I hadn't led people to running a business glory. So I had a lot of insecurities and started kind of pulling him in because he's, led big teams all his life practically. And so this year, the biggest struggle we have right now is me. I tell him all the time, I promise I'm working on this. And when I bring you to a meeting, it's for me to learn. And I'm going to learn fast because I want to get you back out of this knowing.
Oh, nice.
I want you in the part of the business where you're uniquely qualified. And this is an area I can learn and that I'm doing. So that's our struggle probably right now is me kind of pulling him in again, but not just because it's all new, fun, and silly, but this year it's like pulling him into the areas where I'm seeing, okay, I've got to grow here and I need to grow fast on this.
Yeah. I mean, the team right now is getting to that size where we've got to really think about how we structure it and how we get the right people in the right role. That's really what it's about. And just being involved in some of these now is insurance against future, panic moments.
Yes, absolutely.
Wrong role. But so that first year, speaking to people who were considering this or just starting this lifestyle, that was hard. That constant wanting to, it's going to be great. We'll talk all the time. And we talked about the business a lot already. And usually I find it enjoyable. But when I can't point to anything, I actually move forward at the end of the day. We just talk a lot. That was hard for me. Yeah. And I think one thing that I would suggest is for couples working together, both people need to decide how, at the end of the day, am I going to know that I did a good job?
So good.
What is my self-evaluation criteria for that? And for me, that was building an asset of some kind, like something that could live without me turning the crank manually.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't getting to do that very much, that was hard for me.
But you have to remember, us entrepreneurs, we get lonely sometimes. And when someone else comes into our business, we're so excited.
Yeah,
we're like, hi.
That was me. I was like that all that first year.
I understand that. So we eventually developed what I call the closed door protocol. So if the door's closed and you think you need to talk, then
you don't.
First of all, check yourself. Second of all, maybe knock.
So that's actually a really interesting point. So you all have separate offices within the house.
Yeah, we actually ended up, what's funny is we moved this office because we had a bathroom that separated us. I mean, it was so convenient to aggravate him. And
his house, my office was in the closet.
Yeah.
It was in the master closet. So it was real hard to stay away from her.
Yeah. So now I'm on one floor and he's on another floor. So my lazy butt has to go all the way up the stairs if I want to aggravate now. So that
was actually super helpful for me and Chris when we worked together. He actually went to an office and he had a set. So it was like he went to work every day, even though we're both working in the same company. We found that to be really useful because then when he would come home, then work was off the table. We were now in a family.
I considered that too, actually, but I felt like I wanted to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah.
Separate offices is a big thing. And then whenever I get the urge to come down and excitedly engage in a spontaneous meeting with her, then
when does that ever happen?
When you're oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't happen.
Oh gosh, that's so good. Okay, before we end, what I would like each of you to do is just share how all my listeners can get in touch with you. Talk just briefly about the type of coaching you offer, and if someone wants to engage with y'all, how do they hire you? How do they give you money? How do they follow you? So let's start with you, Jody.
So you can find us at jodymoore.com. That's Jody with a Y. And We have a coaching membership there. It's geared for women who have LDS values or Christian values. And we're on Instagram, Jody Moore Coaching, or Facebook as well.
Yay. Okay. What about you, Erin?
We are at revitalizeyourrelationship.com. And Steve and I both coach one-on-one, and we have a group program for entrepreneurs who want better relationships and to not essentially be exhausted.
So do people hire you as a couple, or do they hire you individually?
They hire us individually.
Okay.
Or the group we do the group together, and that's super fun.
Okay, wait, I meant that backwards. I know you're a couple, but if I'm a couple, do we hire you as a couple?
Yes, you can. You can work with us as a couple.
Okay, so we both would come to the session is what I mean.
Yeah.
And you would both come to the session?
I would coach one person, Steve would coach the other.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Oh, I love it. Okay.
It's
so,
really
and what's your URL again? Say it one more time.
It's revitalizeyourrelationship.com.
So good. Okay. What about you, Whitney?
We're steadfastlifecoaching.com. And we recently opened a membership. And so
nice.
Yeah, we're doubling down on the teacher in me. We're calling it Trust University.
Love it.
So yeah, people can hop in there and learn to trust themselves, be consistent. So I get to contribute some of myself.
I love it.
We still do the weight loss relationship and business growing with WITS experience.
Awesome. Love it. All right. What about you, Corinne?
So I have the No BS weight loss program. It's a membership for women who want to lose weight. And you can go to nobsfreecourse.com and take my free course, kind of get into my world. You can also listen to the podcast, Losing 100 Pounds with Corinne, and get a lot of cussing and a lot of straight talk.
I love it. This has been amazing, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate it. I know so many people right now, so many coaches are considering coming in, being life coaches, maybe working with their partner. There are some challenges, but ultimately it's amazing. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Do it. All right, you guys have a beautiful, awesome week. Talk to you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come check out Self-Coaching Scholars. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and we apply it. We take it to the next level and we study it. Join me over at thelifecoachschool.com/join. Make sure you type in the THE lifecoachschool.com/join. I'd love to have you join me in Self-Coaching Scholars. See you there.